It's question and answer session time again here on the virtual gala at the RHDR. And with me, Paul Trotter. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Richard.
How's life in lockdown?
Yeah, quite busy actually because I'm working from home, so I'm catching up all the paperwork that I've been avoiding.
I see. So how long have you worked at the RH&DR?
I'm now in my 9th year there, so comparatively speaking, I'm still a new boy, but it feels like quite a long time.
Yes, you haven't got your Lifetime Achievement Award just yet.
Not quite, no.
So tell us about the areas that you are responsible for in the engineering team.
So basically, we look after the rolling stock, so that's engines and coaches, the track, which is otherwise known as the permanent way, the signalling, and the bridges, etc. Basically, anything technical we get lumbered with as well, whether we like it or not, so plenty of variety.
And I understand you've brought a lot of new technology to the railway as well over recent years.
Yes, we try and keep everything looking the way that it's always done, and we try not to make things look high-tech. But actually, there is quite a lot of high-tech, even on the engines, in the signalling systems, etc. Some of it is very much up to date, and there's one system that we're hoping to install once lockdown's over, where we're in a race with Network Rail to install it to be the first in the country, but I'm quite confident we'll win that race. So we're very much up to date.
Yeah, pioneering.
Yes.
And I guess with that sort of variety of tasks and all of the different things that can crop up at the railway, there's lots of pluses and minuses of your day-to-day work.
Yeah, I mean, a big plus is the variety because, you know, you don't know what you're going to be doing from one day to the next. It can change dramatically very quickly. But that's also the biggest problem because I go in the morning, I create myself a little plan for the day, what I'm hoping to get done, and by 9 o'clock usually the phone's rung and the whole program's out the window and I'm now doing something completely different. So the variety is the plus and the minus.
And I guess Gala Day would normally bring its own set of exciting challenges as well.
Gala Days, the biggest challenge actually is just keeping your feet going because I tend to cover a lot of miles then. There's always something going on, there's always something that needs attention, and so you can get dragged all over the railway, and it's usually a pretty tiring day. This time it's actually quite nice because I can spend it sat in a chair.
And perhaps picking up a virtual bacon roll and a coffee as well.
I was kind of hoping for a real one, actually.
Now, you spoke a little bit there about the sort of day-to-day issues that can crop up, but you also work on some of the major projects at the railway, and understand that you've been working on a new project at Dymchurch.
Yeah, it's going to be putting back something that was there effectively a long time ago, and we're building a new signal box there. The intention is that we're going to have another crossover, which will make the track layout much better, much more flexible. There'll be a lot more signalling as well, and then to obviously operate this, we need a signal box. We've managed to acquire a Westinghouse L frame from New Zealand, of all places. We decided that that was really our dream piece of equipment for it, would be the L frame. They're like hen's teeth. Network Rail have got one at Maidstone East, but we figure they wouldn't like us taking that away. Other than that, they are extremely rare. They almost never come on the market. So I phoned up a friend, or emailed him actually, in Australia, who knows lots of signalling people, and he found one in somebody's garage in New Zealand. So we imported that. That arrived last year, and that will actually be what will control the layout at Dymchurch in time to come.
Well, that does seem like a quite unique addition to the project.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the most travelled L frame in the world because it was manufactured in Chippenham in 1938, exported to New Zealand, travelled around a bit in New Zealand, believe it or not, and then we brought it all the way back to the UK. And it would be quite exciting as that starts to come together, because although it's new to the railway, 1938, it's pretty much the right sort of vintage for the railway. It's not like we're bringing in something ultra modern, although it will be backed up with modern axle counters and things like that, and modern technology, but that will all be hidden. So what we're aiming to do is to produce a very traditional looking signal box, both in terms of the outside of the signal box, so it looks like a traditional Romney box, and there was one at Dymchurch, but also it will look like a traditional railway signal box inside as well. So we won't have high-tech displays and things like that on view to the people as they walk in.
And I guess the timeline for that has slightly gone astray after the events of recent weeks. But if we were back and working, what sort of time scale would you look at for that being ready to go?
Traditionally, the S&T department of the railway have always given timescales in days. So we would say it'd be finished on a Wednesday, because we usually finish stuff on Wednesdays because that's when we have the most volunteers with us. When that Wednesday is, we have no idea.
That's probably the best answer I'm going to get on that one at this time. So I'll move on and ask you a little bit about what you believe your biggest single achievement has been in all the time you've worked at the railway.
I think that, apart from the L-frame, the obvious one with that was the installation of 7 level crossings in just over a year. I joined the level crossing modernisation team quite late on. They'd already done 5 crossings, but at that point, we then significantly changed the design of the level crossings. Basically, we stopped using the Network Rail one and we used our own design. It took us about a year to come up with that design. But when we designed it, we also had in mind manufacturing and building of the control systems, etc. And then for basically 1 year, we just went a bit mad and installed 6 level crossings in a year. Had a slight break then because of the winter weather. It could have been 7 crossings in a year, but the weather at Dungeness isn't good at that sort of time of year. So we waited till the spring to install Dungeness Road. But when we came to actually do the very last crossing, that was quite a big moment for everybody that had been involved with it, because that project started in 2005 and we finally finished it in 2017. Tremendous amount of work for everybody involved with it. And it became almost a way of life for part of it for some people, certainly Steve Rogers from the signalling team. And it's been very gratifying. We've had all sorts of people come to look at it, including Network Rail, not because they want to see how to do it, because they already do it, but they want to see people's different approaches to the same thing. And we all learn from these visits as well. Different people come in and they say, oh, we do it like this, and we go, we do it like this, and obviously our way's better.
Significant achievement though for the railway, and in terms of safety has really helped as well.
Massively. I mean, I think everybody's aware of the 2 tragic accidents on level crossings, and the amount of cars that were taking chances and jumping the lights when we only had lights. Now we have barriers. If you want to jump it, you're going to make a little bit of a mess of your car. You're going to scratch it at the very minimum, and it has cut that risk hugely, and that can only be a good thing for everybody.
Indeed. Well, you've done some videos on this before, so we're actually going to take a look at one of those now, which is from earlier in the year that you were filming at Romney Sands. So let's take a little look at that video now.
Good afternoon, welcome to Romney Sands level crossing. This was the last of our level crossings to be upgraded and has our own in-house designed level crossing control system. The other major giveaway that this is different to the others is the pinch mag barrier machines. These machines, we've got 16 of them now along the railway. They've been 100% reliable, and the first one went in 2014, so we're very pleased with them. Unlike the SPX machines on the Network Rail based crossings, these barrier machines have recirculating ball screws similar to the used on CNC machines. That provides a linear motion, and then a rather clever mechanical linkage accelerates the boom slowly as it starts to descend and then slows it down at the end of its travel. Just in case anybody's not sure, CNC stands for Computer Numerical Control, and it's used in lots of machine tools and various other things like that for manufacturing, all sorts of stuff. if any of you watched the Burmarsh Road video and saw inside the case there, you would have seen that it had 37 BR 930 series relays. You can see this one here only has 8. That's a considerable cost saving, and it actually makes assembling it an awful lot easier. A lot of the jobs now that were done by relays in the other crossings are now done by these programmable logic controllers. We've got 3 of them here that actually are involved in operating the crossing. We have a 4th one here along with its associated bits and pieces. This one actually monitors what the crossing is doing, and if it sees anything it doesn't like, such as if the barriers are up when they should be down, or down when they should be up, then it will send us a text message and tell us that there's a problem. It also monitors a whole load of other stuff as well, so it can tell us all sorts of things that are going on, and it has a limited capability to be interrogated, so we can send text messages to it and it can reply telling us about the status of some parts of it. This is really useful if you're in a pub and you've got nobody to talk to, because you can make it look like you've got a friend. As I said earlier, this crossing was one of the most technically challenging crossings. That was brought about by the fact that Romney Sands is a passing loop. We don't want 2 trains entering simultaneously into the loop, just in case. So we had an approach control signalling system. That controls entry into Romney Sands and only allows 1 train in at a time. Once the train has entered and stopped, the driver can press a button to say that he's stopped, and that will then allow the 2nd train in. What became clear quite quickly was the fact that we would actually need to have the approach control system call the crossing and tell it when to operate. These 2 systems were never designed to be joined together, and that took an awful lot of work. It took us about a year to work through everything, get everything approved and tested, but nonetheless we've done it and it works very reliably. This is the approach control case, and you can see again we're using programmable logic controllers, only 2 of them in this case. And we've also got a monitor there that's monitoring the approach control side of things, and again if there's a problem it will send us a text message. Romney Sands was the last of our 13 level crossings to be upgraded. Reasons for this were quite simple. Firstly, it was the lowest in the risk rating. Secondly, it was physically the most challenging. We have a medium pressure gas main that runs along the railway, there's an electricity main, and it's also very physically cramped. There's not a lot of room for anything. The other thing was that it was technically the most challenging. Romney Sands, the entry into the station is controlled by an approach control signalling system. The level crossing, that's a separate standalone system, or it was. What we had to do was integrate 2 systems that were never meant to be integrated and get them working in harmony.
So Paul, is Romney Sands the most complicated of the level crossings we've got?
The actual level crossing itself is no more complicated than the other level crossings that we've put in. But what made Romney Sands extremely difficult, one was the very tight nature of the ground there. Everywhere you wanted to put something, there was something stopping you for some reason. There's a medium pressure gas main, there's electric cables, telephone cables, and there's just physical things as well, such as a ticket office, etc. The other problem is that Romney Sands is in the middle of the approach control system. And what we couldn't have was the 2 systems conflicting with each other, one saying go and one saying stop, because obviously that can't be allowed to happen. So what we had to do was take 2 systems that we never designed to be integrated with each other and integrate them with each other. And effectively the level crossing is a slave to the approach control system. The approach control system tells it what to do basically. But that took quite a bit of time. Also, we installed completely new both systems, so there was considerably more work to do the installation, considerably more hardware to make, and so it took us quite a bit longer to do that particular crossing.
Now, you've done some other videos, I know, on these level crossings, and they're all available on our YouTube channel. And we're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel at the moment, so it's worth dipping into those. Have a look and subscribe as well. Now, of course, with such a large operation, Paul, it can't always run smoothly. What's been your most worrying time?
Probably when we did the track relaying project. For a long time, the Romney has just relayed relatively short lengths of track, and it was becoming apparent that we weren't keeping up with the rate of renewals that we needed to do. So I got tasked with looking at this, and I sat down in the summer. I did lots of sums, I walked about a lot, and I came up with a plan that would see us relaying about 1 3/4 miles of track in the winter. Something like that had never been done for a very long time. We went out to Dymchurch on the first part of it, and I said to the guys, right, rip the track up. And they did. And half a mile later, I told them to stop, because that was as far as we were going with that thing. But when I actually stood in the middle of that and I looked, and for a quarter of a mile in either direction, there was no track. And Danny was kind of hoping we put it back for the Santa specials. I thought, are we going to be able to do this? And I take my hat off to the guys on the permanent way and the drivers who have pulled into it as well. They worked incredibly hard, and yep, the track was back in time. And not only that, they started again after the Christmas break, and they did the 1 3/4 miles in the winter, which was an incredible achievement. Since then, we've gone on to do the similar ones each year now. We've just finished another mile roughly of track. And so we're getting on top of the relays now.
And a monumental effort, as you say, and a real team effort by everybody involved. And they're out there, whatever the weather. And I think that leads me on to talking about one of your most bizarre incidents that you've experienced at the railway.
Yeah, amongst other things, I'm an incident officer, and one lovely summer's morning, August, bright sunshine, lovely and warm, I got a call saying that there was a lorry driver who was in trouble and we needed to go and help him. The first problem there was we didn't know where he was, so we had to find him first of all, and we had quite a big search on around New Romney trying to find him. Eventually found him. He'd had a bit of a breakdown and he'd shut himself in the freezer compartment of his lorry. Unfortunately, he was dressed in t-shirt and shorts, and after 3/4 of an hour in a freezer in that sort of dress is not good for you. So we ended up with a casualty, basically, who had hypothermia on a beautiful summer's afternoon or summer's morning. So yeah, you have to be prepared for just about anything.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, you spoke about planning for the day, and then your plan's slightly going awry depending on what happens. Have you got any pet hates?
Yeah, the telephone. I hate the telephone. If the telephone rings at 4:30, it's never good news, and it probably means that I'm not just about to go home. I'm just about to go and have to do something or other. And in fact, the only good time the telephone rings is when there's a package or a delivery of something that we're expecting. Other than that, generally, it rarely rings to tell me I've won the lottery or anything like that.
Well, we can all keep trying on that one. And obviously, we are experiencing unprecedented times now. And what's been the most frustrating element of the lockdown for you so far?
We've had two projects, which one was axle counting. Axle counting is, believe it or not, quite a difficult thing to do. You need to count the wheels going into a section and then count them out at the other end of it. But there are all sorts of problems in doing that. The best part of 2 years now, we've been working on an axle counting system, and in February, we think we got it cracked. So far, 10,070 wheels have gone into the section and 10,070 have come out. So we think it's working beautifully, and what we were looking forward to was lots of trains going through the section so that we could prove the reliability of it. We were hoping for, by the end of the year, literally hundreds of thousands of wheels going through and it working every single time. That system is just sitting there and it's not doing a thing. So that's quite frustrating. The other one that we had, we've been trying to develop a system, as we've been saying on occasion. We try to get ahead of with technology and use technology as much as possible. And one of the things we wanted to do was to measure the condition of the track without actually having to walk and crawl along it, looking at it in great detail. We wanted to be able to do it quickly and easily and accurately record where faults were. We put a lot of work into it. One of our volunteers, Tim, he's put a massive amount of work into it. But what we're doing basically is using a mobile phone. Mobile phones have got lots of sensors in them and recording capability. So we send a phone out on the floor of a coach round the railway. It records a lot of data, I mean a lot. Tim's magic system then crunches it all up and we get a graph, and that graph will show us where the bad bits are. We can then hover on those bad bits and it will show us on a map and with lat-long coordinates where the problem is, so we can program a GPS and send the P-way to exactly the right place. Again, that would have just come good and we needed to record some more data to prove some elements of it. That was planned for the Tuesday after lockdown, so that never happened, which is doubly frustrating. One, we didn't make the progress with it, but the other thing is that lockdown would have been the ideal time for looking at the data and manipulating it and doing stuff, and we've lost that opportunity. So that's going to set us back quite a long way.
Well, hopefully it won't be too long before we can get back out there again. I've got just time, Paul, to ask you one last question. And I think it's going to be an interesting one, as always. What's your favourite day of the year on the railway?
I think it's not actually on the railway, it's Christmas Day, because it's the one day when I can switch off completely from it. And I know the phone's not going to ring. I know I don't have to worry about anything at all. And I can just relax.
And I thought it was the build-up to Christmas you like most.
Yes, I love Christmas Eve, and that is the only part of the build-up required. It doesn't start earlier in the year.
Well, I'll make a note of that. Paul, thank you for joining us on the virtual Gala Q&A today.
No problem.
And Paul is around if you want to ask some more questions on Facebook. Keep those questions coming in. Keep your videos and photos coming in as well. And if you're enjoying your virtual Dungeness restaurants, fish and chips, I hope you're enjoying those as well. We'll see you later.